Jennifer Lambers, and welcome to this Facebook Live. We have a lot to discuss so far for this Friday evening. We're tracking thunderstorms out there currently locally, but also keeping an eye on the tropics where we could see impacts as early as Monday. So let's go ahead, dive right in. This is going to be a little bit longer of a Facebook Live. I'm going to be detailing just a lot of what could potentially happen with these storms. So in case you're interested in just some of the science behind it, also a lot of the what ifs and some other scenarios that we could see from them, this is going to be the Facebook Live for you. So stay tuned and we will get right into that. I'm going to touch on these local storms first, but then if you do have any questions, I'm monitoring that thread of comments too. So please feel free to ask any questions in case you do have them. But let's go ahead and touch locally with what we're continuing to track right now. Just some thunderstorms mainly affecting just the outskirts of the area that we do cover here at Walla Fox 10. So zooming in closer, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning currently in place. That's going to include Greene, Washington County, and Wayne County. Now that is going to be in effect until 6:45. Let me go ahead and check out the latest advisory on this because it is past 6:45. There you go. Now it's going to be in effect until 7:30. So this new one, still including Greene, Washington, Wayne counties, in effect until 7:30. So that's mainly looking at the potential for some heavy rainfall and some gusty winds within them. It's mainly just going to be around Chatham and State Line. Now, as the storm is moving, we're going to continue to watch it, but it's mainly stationary. It's heading west. It's west of Chatham right now and hardly moving at all. So in case you are in this area right at State Line near Chatham, you're going to be getting a lot of this heavy rainfall over the next 30 minutes while the storm is still in place. We're in that typical summer-like pattern. We have those mesoscale convective systems, and this is what they like to do. They like to stay stationary and bring a lot of that heavy rainfall to these areas. So ponding water going to be a big risk heading into the next coming 30 minutes. Moving further on up, Thomasville, Fulton, Vredenburg, and also Bashi getting a lot of that activity with all those lightning strikes right now. So we're continuing just to watch these storms as they push on through, but as we approach closer towards sunset, these will start to calm down just a little bit. They're losing that daytime heating factor. And as we head further just a little bit to the east right now, watching Evergreen, Brantley, and also Georgiana for what we have, some of that heavier rainfall, but also some of that lightning. Zooming out right now, Mobile, Baldwin County is looking good so far for this evening. That's going to be our hail scope. So this is showing where we have the potential for some hail. We had some just near Monroeville earlier on this evening, still seeing the possibilities just near Thomasville and also towards Leakesville. So something to keep in mind, heavy winds, heavy rain, and also hail all possible with these. But let's talk about what everyone wants to know about, and that's going to be the tropical systems. Diving right into what we have, I have three things circled just off the coast of Africa. Right now we have a wave there, 20% over the next 5 days. So most likely not going to be anything. Those numbers keep dropping even further. Just yesterday they got up to 40, now at 20. So that one will most likely go away. But let's go ahead and touch on these two. We do have Tropical Storm Laura and also Tropical Depression 14. Tropical Storm Laura got that name earlier on today. And Tropical Depression 14 expected to become Tropical Storm Marco as we head further on into the evening. So something to watch, especially once we get that newest advisory coming on later tonight. Let's go ahead and talk about Laura right now because this sustained winds 45 miles per hour above that tropical storm strength at 39 miles per hour is what it needed to get to that. So moving west, 17 miles per hour, that latest advisory, 4 p.m. Next one coming out tonight. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this. It's going to be at that 10 p.m. Eastern time. What we'll watch with this one right now, as it approaches closer towards Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles, what's going to happen to this? Is it going to drive the system to just go further on towards Florida and also through the Straits of Florida? Is it going to be affected by the areas that are going to be mountainous in that? Well, we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll also check out the track on it as well. And this is what it has. Again, this came out at 4 p.m. today. That track has it mainly just skirting along Cuba and the Dominican Republic. And what we can see with it even further is picking up that Category 1 strength by the time it heads into the Gulf of Mexico. That's expected to enter into the Gulf by the time we get to Monday. So really something to keep an eye on because this will be a historic thing to watch when we have potentially two hurricanes in the Gulf at the same time. Now, as I zoom in closer, this is going to be that track. Again, this came out at 4 p.m. and tonight we'll have another advisory. Now, models have been leaning further towards the west, So it's important to watch these because a lot of these models, again, heading west, and the National Hurricane Center being a little bit conservative on it. They have it still having it in this cone of uncertainty. And this is going to be 400 miles wide. So from the center of that one to the right and to the left, that's going to be 200 miles each way. So a lot of uncertainty in the air. Not until Wednesday is when we're seeing that potential landfall, and that'll be at 75 miles per hour. 74 miles per hour sustained winds is that Cat 1 strength. So this is still a lot of days out. Let's go ahead and talk about some additional scenarios. But checking in first with Tropical Depression 14. That latest advisory just came out at 7 p.m. Now all of this advisory is just showing where those sustained winds are, and that's going to be at 35 miles per hour, moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. So we're continuing to track this one as it heads closer towards Cozumel and the Yucatan Peninsula. That track on it, though, has it just skirting along, picking up that tropical storm strength as we head further on into tonight. So this latest advisory that just came out, haven't seen it. We haven't seen that come out as that tropical storm strength, still just at those winds at 35 miles per hour. But that track has it picking up to a Category 1 hurricane strength. Now it would be heading into Monday and into Tuesday where it will keep that strength. But then by the time it gets landfall, it actually goes back down to that tropical storm strength. Now, over Texas and Louisiana right now, there's a lot of shear. So that's what's going to be inhibiting that development just before that landfall and keeping it from that Cat 1 strength, which is a good thing to see, but also something to keep an eye on, again, as we get closer. Two different storms. I'm going to be detailing that in just a couple of minutes. I have some graphics made, and something that I really want to talk about is these two storms in the Gulf. Are they going to affect each other? Are they going to help each other? Are they going to merge into one storm? Well, there's a lot of different scenarios, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that just after I show you the European model. Now, the European model, it hasn't really been the best so far for this season. From what we've been seeing, it's struggled so far, especially we saw that with Isaias and with Hannah. But what it gives us a good idea of is the timing and just a little bit of the direction of the steering within these. So let's go ahead and jump it up just a little bit. So by the time we get to Sunday at 5 p.m., I circled these storms of where you can see them moving to. So over Cuba, just above Cozumel, is both these storms. Now by this point, we're going to be seeing both of these being tropical storms. So again, Sunday by 5 p.m., expecting both of them to be tropical storm strength. And then by the time we get to Monday, they're both going to be in the Gulf. Expecting both of these at this point to be hurricane strength. So two Category 1 hurricanes expected in the Gulf by this point on Monday evening. So really all eyes going to be on the Gulf Coast by this point, all over the entire U.S., just because of what we're continuing to watch with this. We've never seen this before, and it's an important thing to monitor and also to learn from. But going ahead and keeping it moving forward, it's going to be by Tuesday afternoon. You can see that the European model has that southerly westerly track just south of Houston on that Texas coast for that landfall of what will be Tropical Storm Marco by this point. But then we still have that Cat 1 hurricane, what will be Hurricane Laura just right there in the middle of the Gulf. You can see already bringing that heavy rain and those rain bands to Mobile, Pensacola, all just along those coastal regions. And as we continue further on into Tuesday night, inching even closer. But the European model, that's what I really want to point out here, is that it has it going further west. This is by Wednesday morning that we're seeing this, so this is nothing definitive. I'm mainly just getting down the timing and also showing these two systems together. This is not definitive at all that this is going to head towards Louisiana, just one of those models leaning towards it. And again, the European model has not performed great so far for this season. It takes in different data than the GFS, and so the GFS tends to lean towards the strength of storms better. The Euro model tends to do the track better, but hasn't performed the best for 2020, and I wouldn't expect any less of 2020. As we continue further on into Thursday, we're still seeing the effects of the system so far, but it's moving further inland towards Mississippi. So that's going to be heading towards Jackson, Starkville, and further up towards Tennessee by the time we get later on to the Friday. And then as you can see with what was Marco already kind of anticipating and heading really fast up towards Oklahoma, even this latest run has it disappearing. It used to be there where that circle was, but still tracking as what would be post-depression remnants of Laura heading towards Memphis and Nashville. So for all my friends up there, That's something to keep an eye on too, bringing heavy rainfall to the Midwest and also the Southeast. Let's go ahead and talk about the modeling though, because I've been talking about all of these models and what they look like, and most are in agreement of once it gets past Cuba, heading into the Gulf, but then from there they all kind of disagree. Now, this is an important thing to note, is because of we have two systems in the Gulf at the same time. That's the majority reason. Now, it is a couple days out, but that really is what's leaning towards it, is that these models don't know how to perform with these two systems side by side. That one just has it going towards us, but most are in agreement of it on that westerly track, and that's why the National Hurricane Center leaning further towards that track. But even now, you can see some of those heading towards Houston, which is an interesting thing to see, that this system and some of the models leaning towards it, following in the path of what would be Marco. But let's go ahead and check out the models for Marco, because these ones are even more all over the place. They are all scattered. They get it past the Yucatan Peninsula, but again, they don't know what to do once we have all of those systems in the Gulf at the same time. They're not performing as well as we would like to see because of those atmospheric differences and what could happen with having both of them there. This is something that we haven't seen before in the Gulf of Mexico, let alone two hurricanes at the same time. And so meteorologists are learning from this. We're watching this. We're going to analyze what happens for future development. But right now, those models really underperforming in terms of what's expected to happen. And I want to say that too, is that anything could happen. It's 2020 at this point. So we're just watching and learning. And as we approach closer, we'll have more definitive answers with it. But here's both models together. They really start to get to that crisscross pattern by the time we get to midweek. So by Monday and Tuesday rolling around, that's where they start to kind of crisscross. Some of them showing Laura heading in the path of what would be Marco. Some of them have Laura heading further east, heading towards Mobile. And then also other ones have Marco heading towards Houston, or even heading towards Louisiana, where we have both storms following the same path. So I wanted to show both of these side by side just to kind of break down the differences in what it is, and also because we have been getting a lot of questions. Well, can these storms combine? Well, it's not completely out of the question, and also it is still possible with them as well. So let's go ahead and check out those tropical headlines, because what we do know is that both of these storms are likely to strengthen. Again, we're expecting them to get up to that Category 1 hurricane strength. Long range uncertainty still in the question though, because like I was saying, it's something that we haven't seen. The models don't know how to act with them when you have two of those storms together. But regardless, we're still expecting those impacts to affect us here locally Tuesday and Wednesday. So still expecting some rip currents to bump up, but also that heavy rainfall with some of those rain bands. So let's talk about the names. We've been blowing through a lot of these. We've marked a lot of them off the list. Laura so far is marked off now. Also, I want to point out the National Hurricane Center has retracted what they did have that original pronunciation. It was Laura, and me being from the Midwest, that's how we pronounce it there. We say Laura, but they just came out with that new pronunciation guide today, and it is Laura. So just something to note there. I will probably still struggle with it, but it is Laura. And next on deck is going to be Marco. So what will be Tropical Depression 14 right now, expected to be Marco heading later on into this evening. This will be the earliest L storm. It did just beat Hurricane Louise, which was August 29th, 1995. And Marco most likely going to be beating Hurricane Maria from September 2nd, 2005. Some tropical facts. So far, I've been saying this, and I touched on it just yesterday. It's since satellite imagery, we have not had two tropical storms in the Gulf at the same time. Now, keyword, since satellite imagery, because it has happened. It's just been a while. With tropical storms, it would have been 1933 and also 1959 since we've seen this happen. So an important thing to note that 2020 is the year for breaking records, bringing in new things, and this is just one of them. But even further, there have never been two hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. So we're continuing to track, just breaking additional records with that. But let's go ahead and check out these tracks. It's going to be from the National Hurricane Center, and I really wanted to put them side by side just so you can see the path that they're projected to take, and also that overlapping. This is a really important thing that we need to discuss, because they're expected to get to that Category 1 strength at the same time in the Gulf of Mexico, breaking a record there on its own. but those cones are overlapping, and I touched on that with that model. I keep talking about it. A lot of people are going to be talking about it, and you're really going to be hearing this coming over the next couple of days. That's going to be that question. Well, can these combine? Well, it's not possible. It's called the Fujiwara effect, and this effect was coined in 1921 by a Japanese meteorologist who saw these two tropical cyclones merge into one. So yes, it is very possible for them to combine. And again, that's called the Fujiwara effect. You're probably going to be hearing this over the next week. Will it happen? Well, most likely not. Both of these are very strong systems, and negative impacts are more likely. But again, it's 2020 and anything can happen so far. So let's go ahead and go through the different scenarios that we could see. Well, both of these systems are expected to be the same strength once they're in the middle. But Tropical Depression 14, what's soon to be Marco, is expected to weaken back down into a tropical storm. So that would mean one's stronger than the other. And that means the potential for scenario A, here I'm actually going to, okay, scenario A would be Hurricane Laura and her tropical storm at that point, Marco, orbiting Hurricane Laura just based on the intensity that it has. So that's scenario number A, based on what they're currently saying is Tropical Storm Marco being weaker than Hurricane Laura by the time they head closer towards the Gulf Coast. Now, what if they're both hurricanes? Well, then they would negatively impact each other by the time that they get closer. Also, it's important to note, the Fujiwara effect, it's only really possible once they get into 810 miles of each other. And with those tracks where the overlap happens, that's within 600 miles of each other. So the Fujiwara effect really is coming into play for different scenarios that we're talking about with this. And that's why all those landfall effects and all those paths are up in the air, because it's a very rare thing that we haven't really seen. We've seen it over the United States with post-tropical depressions up towards Michigan and them combining, but never two hurricanes in the Gulf. So this is historic, and also it's a good thing to learn from for meteorologists for future times. So I do say things are up in the air, and they really are. Well, if the two storms are close in size, well, they could gravitate towards each other, and then also they would reach a common point where they can merge. So we could have two of these storms merging together. So we've seen the joke so far of the superstorm, but it is totally possible that they could merge into one. But then soon that they would separate and go in different directions. But also another one is that they would just battle against each other and go in different directions. So you'd have the super one, that would all stay together. Sorry, I misworded there. That superstorm would stay together. Or they would come battle each other, which if y'all want a 2020 hurricane joke, they would come eye to eye. Get it? Eye to eye of a hurricane, haha, yes. But it really is a scenario that we could see, is them battling each other based on that, when they are expected to be side by side, potentially heading into next week. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch and also learn from. I wish I could give a definitive answer on what is going to happen, but this is meteorology and not quite there yet. But so I'll keep an eye on those. But again, I said 810. It's 870 miles of each other. That's where the Fujiwara effect comes into play and comes into talk of it happening. So you're going to be hearing a lot of that word. Don't fall for the hype. I'm trying to explain what I can and what I know, so that way you can keep an eye on it, but nothing is definitive at this point. So just be careful of what you read, what you watch, and also what is discussed. It will always be a what-if scenario. Well, jumping right back into these, let's go ahead and talk local conditions. Yes, as we are continuing to track just some of these thunderstorms in the area, let's go ahead and check out your futurecast for your Saturday and your weekend. Now, heading further on into tonight by 10 p.m., still tracking some of these showers, mainly offshore, heading towards Pascagoula. Additional ones just heading further up towards our northeastern region. Can't rule out isolated showers and storms heading into overnight. See these coming through around midnight and 1 a.m. As we get to Saturday morning, looking at those coastal shower potentials and also thunderstorms heading further on into your Saturday afternoon. It's summertime here on the Gulf Coast, and although it looks kind of wet in this picture, it is the lowest rain chances of the week for your Saturday. So mainly just tracking the potential for those afternoon showers and those thunderstorms. And heading further on into Saturday evening, still tracking that potential. Isolated chances remain overnight, but very minimal. Checking out your day planner for tomorrow. Temperatures, daytime highs, upper 80s, lower 90s. Scattered rain chances, still looking at mostly sunny skies. So again, it's going to be a beautiful Saturday, y'all. Rain chances only at 30%, lowest chances of the week. Because by the time we get to Sunday, bumping that up to 80%, and by next week, 70%. Being a little light there because we are expecting tropical impacts possible. Now again, big asterisk there, just based on that model guidance and what we could see. Regardless, we would still have that summer-like pattern here on the Gulf Coast, but those rain chances bumping up just slightly to the 70%. Daytime highs cooling down just slightly in the upper 80s, overnight lows staying in the lower 70s. And then by the time we get to Friday, looking back at some lowering rain chances. So looking a little bit better long term. Enjoy your Saturday while you can because it will be getting wet around here. So just something to keep in mind. Going ahead and reading through any of the comments. I agree with Timothy. He said, can we break the, here. I'll go ahead and bump this back. It'll load. I'm going to give some shout outs here too. There we go. Nice little backdrop of the tropics. Well, Timothy said, can we break the hurricane naming rules and call the other storm Luke? I agree because Laura is going to get me. I've been saying Laura, or Polo. I agree. I would have really liked Marco Polo. Thank you, Bobby. I want to say hello to Carrie. Also, hello to Lindsay, watching from Slidell. Matt says it's party time, getting ready for those hurricane watch parties next week. Barbara, hello from Greene County, Mississippi. Michael says he's getting ready to hunker down here in Grand Bay. Yep, getting ready for a rainy week. Better get that Netflix on standby. Also, make sure you go ahead and go to the store. Find what you can. Anissa says, I agree, anything can happen. Jabe says that he sees the two merging if they both make it in. Carmen, I agree with the bruh. Carrie said Jumanji level 20. I actually shared a funny picture today on my Facebook. Let me see if I can find it. It was by far my favorite meme of the season. Let's see if I can get that bumped up. There you go. Buy one, get one free hurricanes coming in assorted varieties. Category 1, tropical storms, Caribbean Gulf. I love to see it. I'm really on that 2020 bandwagon. So in case you guys aren't following me on Facebook, sometimes I do have some funny content. It's at Meteorologist Jennifer Lambers, Fox 10 News. Highly recommend following that. I will also have lots of information on the tropics as they emerge further. Trina says, oh, you thought 2020 was done? Yeah, no, don't sleep on 2020. I agree with Jennifer. It needs to be Marco Polo. You're welcome, Estella. She says, thank you for mailing this. Trina says, 2020 said, hold my beer, watch this. Lindsay says, not impossible to combine. Correct, you're right. Again, everyone's going to be hearing that over the next coming days, the Fujiwara effect. Just don't get into the hype. That's all I'm begging you. Nothing is definitive at this point. We're watching and we're learning from this. That's what we can do as meteorologists, is we study what's mainly already happened. And so what we're continuing to watch with this is just the possibilities, the model runs, and also the guidance within it. So nothing is definitive. It's still by midweek next week. So just keep focused at the Fox 10. We will never hype it up for you guys, and we will keep it honest here. I want to stay humble with all of this too, just to know what I know and also to share what I don't and what I'm thinking. Andrew says Cat 6 storm. Luckily not, just barely going to be it. Oh, and Larry asked, what do you call it if they merge? So if they merge, it was actually a little bit hard to find this information. If they merge, there'll be one parent storm to it. So there'll be one stronger storm than the other. And so the stronger storm within it is the one that will keep the name. So at this point, Lara is expected to be Cat 1 strength, and then Marco is expected to be tropical storm strength. So if they merge, it would be because one is weaker than the other, and that's when we would see that happen, is when tropical storm Marco is absorbed. Again, this is all what if. Then it would be named after Lara, since Lara is going to be the one that's the stronger storm of the two. See, and then this is why I read the comments, because I always like it whenever people have questions, because there's easily something that I will miss. And I'll follow you, Scuba Steve. I think I do. But thank you, Annette. She says, thank you for the weather updates. Lightning in Loosedale, Mississippi. Also, Michael says, love you, good job. Thank you, Michael, for that. And also Slater says, I love a good storm. So yeah, so that is all I have for this evening. Again, I'll be back at 9 and 10 p.m. tonight. We're going to continue to keep doing Facebook Lives, updates, and also eventually we'll start doing cut-ins by the time we get to the end of the weekend. So just something to keep in mind. Once we get closer to this, I want to reiterate, nothing is definitive at this point. So regardless of what you hear, what you see elsewhere, it's all still up in the air. We're watching these as they approach closer to the Gulf. A lot of these models really in disagreement by the time it gets to next week. We have a good idea for the next day or two, but after that, it's watching and waiting and keeping you guys updated. So regardless, go ahead, have your plan in place, know what you're doing, get the supplies that you need. Also, it's COVID too, that's bringing in a lot more stuff. COVID-19, there you go, COVID. Make sure that you have everything that you need in case something does happen and you need to go elsewhere. So that includes the mask, the hand sanitizer, also the wipes if you can find them. Something to keep in mind, everything's different this year and it never hurts to be prepared. So I wish everyone a fantastic Friday evening. We'll keep you updated here on Fox 10 News throughout the evening. Download our app, follow all of our meteorologists on social media, and we'll keep you updated along the way. So again, I wish everyone a happy Friday evening.